Hi there everybody, Robin Nichols back talking to you about taking the next level in Photoshop Elements, and that is understanding selections. Now I guess once you've got over the confusion of locating all your picture files, working out how to open your files, basically organizing yourself in the organizer and then making little tonal changes, hopefully improvements to your pictures using levels, for example, or hue and saturation, for example, you'll want to take it up another grade. And the best way to do that is to think about making selections. The problem with global tonal changes is just that, it's global. So when you brighten a picture up, the whole picture gets brighter. When you color up a picture, the whole picture gets brighter in its color, or more intense in its color. Sometimes we just want to select a bit of a picture and change the color in that. And the best way of doing that is to use a selection. Now, funnily enough, Photoshop Elements comes stuffed full of really good selection tools. And if you're working with Adobe Photoshop Elements 12, 11 or 10, I think was when it first appeared, you have a little menu here on the left hand side in the edit mode, and it's called the select menu. You don't have quite the same luxury in the quick edit. You have one selection tool as far as I can recall. Here we go. But in the expert, which of course all of you are by now, you have multiple selections. I'm going to whiz through these and show you what you need to do with them. What is probably not a selection tool, but is a bit of a weird one to be in the selection menu, is the move tool. And if you hover over any of these little icons, you'll see it gives you a little descriptor, move tool, and in brackets V. That means if I go and press the V key, it automatically selects the move tool. Huh, that's pretty cool. So if I hover over the rectangular marquee tool, it's M. If I hover over the magic wand tool, it's A. And if I hover over the magnetic lasso tool, it's L. And as you can see here, down at the bottom of the page here, you can see there are actually, for example, marquees. There are two types of marquee, there are three types of sort of magic wand selection tools, and there are three types of lasso tools. So very important now, which one works for what picture? Actually, you'll probably find that one selection tool probably doesn't quite do it all, and so you may have to use a combination of them. Very rarely do we actually have a jet black cat sitting on an all white blanket and we need to select it. You know, life isn't that easy, unfortunately. So we need to use a combination of these tools and possibly understand what these tools do in order to get a greater understanding of which ones we need to choose. We also have a couple of selection tools down here. One is called the background eraser tool and one is called the magic eraser tool. And these are essentially for selecting things like skies when we want to replace a sky and put it back into into an image with a better looking sky. And we'll get to that in a moment. So the move tool. Move tool is fantastic because a lot of students say to me, Robin, I'm sick and tired of using this program, and what happens is I want to get rid of the tool that's on the end of the cursor here. So they're afraid if they're using, I don't know, the red eye tool or one of these paintbrush tools, they'll accidentally click in the picture and it'll go off and do something. So one of the safest tools to use is by pressing V on the keyboard, the move tool, because that really doesn't allow you to damage or stuff up anything at all. Okay, so the rectangular and the elliptical marquee tool as the name suggests, very easy to use because they select things that are rectangular. So I can click and drag and I can select this approximately rectangular house. Unfortunately, I've also selected the front of the car and the 2-hour parking permit out the front as well. But you get the idea. That is now selected. So if I were to use levels, for example, and I make a tonal change, it's only going to make a tonal change to that square or that rectangle. I have selected it and it now limits my operations to a selected area rather than a global area, or rather a local area rather than a global area. So it's a really nice feature. To get rid of the selection, we deselect, and that's Control or Command D on the keyboard, or we go to the select menu and we choose deselect. So similar to that, of course, is the elliptical marquee tool, and this is very useful for doing things like selecting tires. I do that all the time, and I can then click in the middle and just push it around. I think I haven't done it quite correctly, so what I'm going to do is just blow it up, and I'm going to try and select it from the middle and see if that works. There we go. There's a bit of a trick. If you hold the Alt or the Option key down and the Shift key and you start in the middle, it actually holds it and grows it out from the center, so you can pretty much select the wheel in the corner like that. And then I'm going to do this and hopefully, oops, no, that didn't work, did it? Hopefully select both of them, but that's there we go. Alright, and again I can go and use levels to lighten or darken that. So very simple, elliptical and rectilinear or rectangular marquee tool. Now you'll notice along the bottom here we have a couple of other little segments, and this allows me to add to that selection or subtract from. So if I want to add to that selection, let's say I want to add to this, I'm holding the shift key down. Okay, accidentally chose the wrong tool there. Well done, Robin. And I'm going to add to this selection. It's a little bit random. No, that didn't work, so I'm going to just drag this down again. Something like that. And we get two wheels selected at the same time. So we have the ability to hold the shift key down to add to. Okay, or we can literally just click on, we can hold the Alt or the Option key down to subtract from. Very nice little features. The last one, the third one, is intersecting. And intersecting allows me to do that. So it just takes the intersected part of the selection, i.e. the bit in the middle, and deletes the other two. Control or Command D gets rid of your selection. Okay, so very, very easy. You know, they're fairly straightforward. Slightly less straightforward are these guys. This is called the Lasso Tool, and this is very good for for literally just clicking and dragging and lassoing something. You know, as you can see here, you think, well, that's pretty cool. If I press Control or Command C and then V, I can, guess what? I've got an extra car. So I've lassoed the car plus some real estate around it, and I've now got another two. So I can create a real parking problem in this street by putting this up here. Okay, and I can just make it look very, very busy. I can cheat again by putting an extra one in. I've just Control V again, so we've got another one parked just behind it. It's actually parked in. It's going to get really angry about this. There we go. So obviously I need to spend a little bit more time fixing up my parking, but I also need to spend a little bit more time with the Lasso Tool. The Lasso Tool is very, very easy to use badly. It's very hard to use well because it's a little bit like drawing with a house brick. Very hard. Now, as you can see here, as I went Control C and Control V for paste, we paste a new layer in. So we've got two extra layers up the top here. So that's a really cool thing because you can cut something out of a picture, recolor it, reshape it, have it pointing in a different direction, and then pop it back into the same photo to make it look as though it's different. It's a crazy world out there, and you can do almost anything you like. So the Lasso Tool is very, very good, but as I say before, it's a little bit hard because it's hand drawing. So you've got to be very, very good at hand drawing. Particularly good if you're using something like a graphics tablet, because that uses a little electronics pen as the stylus instead of a mouse, and much easier to handle. We have things like the rectilinear marquee tool, and this is fantastic because if I click, drag, click, drag, click, drag, click, drag, click, drag, and so on and so forth, it actually just points or joins point A with point B with point C and so on and so forth. So it's very good for rectangular, hence the name, for rectangular objects. So I could, in 10 minutes make a perfect selection of this house. I'll just cut that short, of this house, and I'll go back to the beginning, which is somewhere like there. And you can see I've got a pretty good outline along the roof line there. So it allows me to join point to point, and that's a rectilinear, the rectangular or political lasso tool. Finally, we've got the magnetic lasso tool. That's fantastic for doing things like obvious contrast differences. Here we are. Wow. So it actually sticks to areas of contrast, obviously the white sky and the brickwork. So I can actually have the cursor, a few millimeters away from this and be completely, whoops, gone off into the sky there a little bit, but I can be quite sloppy with my brushwork and it still actually sticks to lines of contrast. Pressing escape kills it. Now the frequency shows just too many little, I don't want too many of the little points there. Contrast is like a speed control. So hit frequency now, I've turned the frequency down so you get far fewer little black anchor points. These are like little drawing pins that go in to hold the line against there, and you can see here the contrast is really sticking to the edge of that roof line, even though I'm nearly a centimetre away from the edge. So it is actually quite good. I don't use this a great deal, but when it does work well, it works very well. And you've got to go around to the beginning and tie it in. So you may find that you think, well, that's okay, but I've made a bit of a dog's dinner out of this one. I'll very, very quickly just select the elliptical marquee tool, and what I'll do here is I'll hold the shift key down and then just add. I'll go over and just add, using the marquee tool, stuff that I've missed. So remember what I was saying earlier? It's very easy to make selections when you understand multiple selection tools, because one selection tool may not necessarily do all your selecting. I'll introduce you to another one now. So if I zoom in, you can see here that I'm actually not really getting it around that roof line. So what I could do is then just grab hold of the Magic Wand tool. I do like the Magic Wand tool because it works very, very well. And again, I'm going to hold the Shift key down to add it to plus. Okay, add it to plus, so it's going to add, and I just click, bang. It selects everything that is the same color as the pixel that I clicked on, which is white. So you can see here, I can probably very quickly select, unfortunately it's selected the telegraph wires as well, but then it's just snapped in, and because most of the sky is almost entirely white, it actually selects this area very, very quickly, and I've just missed a little bit there. But I'm going to hold the Alt key down and go in minus, oops, because I don't need, actually I want to go into subtract from, let's select that, there we go. You know, there will always be little bits like that where it just doesn't quite grab it. But as you can see, you know, that's not bad. I could go back to my Marquee tool, rectangular, and just select that drain pipe. Whoops, the wrong way around. Like that. There we go, so that adds it to it. Now, if you spent 20 minutes doing this, well done. Shows a certain degree of dedication. Second thing is, don't forget to save your selection, because you may get called away, you may just get bored with it and think, well, I'm just going to go to bed now. So, for goodness sake, save this selection. You click OK. And you'll notice then, if I click save, I've actually got to save the document. This is already a PSD, so it's going to force me to save it as a Photoshop file. It cannot save selections. Let's just kill that selection. You cannot save selections in JPEGs. So if I just show you now, that selection's disappeared. I deselected it on purpose. Let's say we come back next day, we open it up, and I choose load selection. Lo and behold, there is the edge. I click OK, and that selection comes back. You can save as many selections as you fancy in one. I think I worked on a document a few years ago and it had like 27 different selections. You have to be quite precise about what you name them, because if you've got 27 selections, it does get very, very confusing, trust me. Okay, so that's the Magic Wand, one of my favorite little tools here. How sensitive the Magic Wand is, it's kind of a funny term, but how sensitive it is called the tolerance. The default is 32, so that means that if I use the Magic Wand and I click in that area, bang, it selects everything with a reasonable sensitivity, more or less white pixels, in which case it just gets everything, but it stops at the telegraph wire because they're black pixels. So then I have to hold the Shift key down and click there, and it snaps in 3 clicks. I've got the entire sky. That's very, very cool, very quick. It's got a little bit of the drain pipe down here because the drain pipe is very close to the tonality. If we zoom in it, yes, it's almost the same color, and that's why we've selected that. So if we're a little bit careful about this, I can bring the tolerance down, which is like the sensitivity to white, I suppose. Click it, and you can see it now sticks or doesn't venture into the plasterwork or the timberwork or whatever it is on the side of that building. So the tolerance is set generally to 32, but we use it at slightly less setting, or lower setting, in order to not grab things we don't want to. But remember, of course, if it does, and if we just do the, whoops, if we do this selection business, here we go, and it grabs too much, we can of course just use tools like the Marquee tool just to go backwards. Get it right, Robin, get it backwards, there we go, and just reselect stuff that, you know, was over selected by mistake. So we just grab, just draw a line around stuff. Very easy. Another way to do that, of course, is to use the Lasso tool. We can use this polygonal Lasso tool, and I can say to it, look, hey, I've got a feeling I'm going the wrong way again, but just all the way down there, and then go back and join it up. And of course I'm doing the wrong way around, so I'm going to do that again. Go down here, all the way down. So when we're making selections, we're actually only really interested in that edge. There we go, it's the edge in between the sky and the building, because the rest of it is just very easy to clear up. Okay, so that's the Lasso tools, and that is the Magic Wand tool. A couple of other tools worth mentioning. This is the selection or the quick selection brush. Again, this is based on the color, so if I click and I move the brush around, it just grabs everything that looks vaguely white. Alright, and this is a similar kind of selection tool that works on the teeth whitening tool. Looks like a little toothbrush in the quick edit. There we go, there's the toothbrush tool. And what that does is just automatically select things of a certain tonality, usually kind of off-white, and automatically brightens them. So you can see here, I haven't really done much, I've just clicked and dragged, and it just goes wallop and selects everything. Again, it's stopped at the traffic lights and stopped at the telegraph wires there, and it kind of just goes out, and again it's missed a few bits, it's gone over, it's grabbed too much, but in general it's not a bad little tool. Final tool in this little group here to look at is the selection brush. And this allows me to do this. This is great. It's like sort of a plastic sort of rubbery thing. And again, it relies on accurate drawing. And of course, I'm not very accurate drawing here. And as you can see here, it's going to be totally hopeless to try and get a nice clean line along those drain pipes and electrical pipes, and etc., etc. I just can't do it. So that's where the magic wand tool probably, or one of the other tools, is going to give a slightly better result. Okay, don't forget, you can always add or subtract with any of these tools in any combination. As long as they're a selection brush, you can do that. Moving on to the eraser tool, we have a couple of beauties here. If we just use the eraser tool, this is what happens. It just erases. There's a funny thing. So it's just like a manual cutting out, I suppose, like a kid with a scrapbook. So kind of hard to use. Very similar to a lot of the other tools that rely on freehand operation. Here's one called the background eraser. Gee whiz, what does that do? I guess it erases the background. What we have to do is hold the Alt or the Option key down first, and then just mouse click wherever we want to erase. In this case, I've got an easy picture. I want to erase this white blown out sky. So if I click once, it sets the color. It's actually not white, it's a sort of a grey color. And you can see here, if I just set that, it chooses the brickwork. If I set this, it chooses the plants. So I need to choose the sky, because that tells it just erase anything that looks remotely like that color. So I can click, and I think, well, gee whiz, that's absolute waste of time, because I can just do that with the eraser tool. I don't need a special tool. The magic happens is when you come down to the edge, you can see it sort of doesn't erase the roof, but it sort of did as well. So I'm a bit disappointed with that. So let's bring the tolerance down. Let's be totally intolerant of this thing. I'm just going to reset it again, and then come down to the bridge, come down to the edge, there we go, and now you can see it snaps to that, but it doesn't actually erase over that line. So it's become a lot more tolerant and saying, look, I'm only going to erase stuff that is fairly close to the original pixels Robin's clicked on, which were sort of greyish, whitish, pinkish, brownish sort of colorish, but you know what I mean. So here I think, wow, I'm cooking with gas here. This is pretty good. Even through here, that's going to work really nicely, so I can whiz around this sky. Wow, I'm even impressing myself here. This is very, very good. You can even go around the sky like this, down to the scaffolding. Whoops, got to be careful. As soon as I move that cross, which is inside that brush, as soon as I move that cross onto the picture, it'll then pick up the brown or whatever is in the guttering and think, well, he wants me to erase that as well. So there we go. I've erased most of that sky. Anything up here, I can just forget it. I can just, for example, lasso using the Marquee tool and press backspace or delete. I can use any one of those selection tools. The important thing is to use that eraser brush. Where are we? Here we go. Background eraser, and come down here. You can do it even just sort of freehand like that, and that's pretty darn good. Okay. Now, while you're patting yourself on the back, you think, well, that's the best selection I've ever done. You can, of course, select it. You can, of course, save it. You can do all those things. There are a few little loose tail ends that I haven't got here. The proof is in the pudding. So if we've made a selection and we're happy with it, and this is going to be as rough as anything, what we need to do is then find another sky. Oops, that's not a sky. Here's a sky. That probably looks as though it may do the job. I'm going to select it all by pressing Control or Command A to select all, Control or Command C to copy all, and I'm going to go back to my PSD, my original, which has the sky removed. I'm going to press Control or Command V to paste it. Woohoo! So now I remember this was taken some years ago on a 8 megapixel camera, I think. So there's a couple of problems. A, it's landed on top of the house, and B, it's a bit too small. So I'm just going to go to the layer palette, drag it down underneath layer 0 and let go. So suddenly it disappears behind the house and things begin to look a little bit better. I can grab a corner, stretch it down wherever I want to go. I can even just bring it up to there. And now if I click the little green arrow, it's looking a lot gooder. It's not brilliant because there are a few bits of tissue floating around in the sky here, and these are just bits of the background original sky that I need to get in there and erase. And I can just use the eraser tool. I'm talking about the regular eraser, just, oh, click that. Deliberate error there, Robin, that was a deliberate error. I clicked on the sky layer, not on the house layer, so I go to the house layer and then get rid of all these extra bits. So you will be a little bit surprised sometimes to think something that looks brilliant ends up by looking a little bit dicky because you've got all these little tail ends left over. There's a few little things, that loose ends like that. You'll also notice that we've got a blue line. So that's basically saying to me I haven't quite erased enough. So in the next video I'll show you how you can fine-tune your selections to make them fit 100%, and to get rid of some of these little errors that we occasionally confront ourselves with when we're making what we think is a clean selection. It turns out to be a little bit cranky around the corners, a little bit rough around the corners. And that very briefly is selection. So salient points here, key points here to remember are all the selection tools work hand in hand with each other, so you can use one or a combination of them. They've got like a forward and a backwards gear, a front and a reverse gear, by simply choosing add to or subtract from. Third thing to remember is once you've spent a little bit of time on a selection, it's a really good idea to save it under the select menu so that at another time, another day, you can reload that selection. And it's also a good idea to work out a good name for it so that you can recall a week or a month later what the heck the selection was all about.